My parents called me careless for getting hit by a car, but when my sister got shin splints from track practice, they spent $3,000 on a massage gun and a personal rehab setup. When I was 14, I was hit by a car walking home from school. I woke up in a hospital bed with my leg in a cast and a ringing in my ears that wouldn't stop, like the world had been shrunk into a single sharp noise. Mom stood by the door, arms crossed, asking why I hadn't looked both ways before crossing. Dad said accidents happen when people want attention. The nurse asked if they wanted to speak to the doctor about internal injuries, and Dad said, she's fine, she just needs to learn to pay attention next time. I tried to tell them the driver had been speeding, that it wasn't my fault, but Mom just said, you always find someone else to blame. When I got home, the stairs were too much, so I slept on the couch. Every time I groaned trying to turn, Mom sighed like my pain was an inconvenience. By the third night, I was crawling to the bathroom because I didn't want to wake anyone. My knee felt like it was filled with glass. I asked if we could go back to the hospital because the doctor said there might be nerve damage. Dad told me to stop pretending to be disabled because pity wouldn't fix laziness. At school, the guidance counselor called home when I fell during gym class and couldn't get up. My parents told her I'd always been dramatic. When I overheard the counselor ask if they'd consider physical therapy, Mom laughed and said, for what, a bruise? I stopped asking for help after that. By 16, the pain had spread to my back and hips, but I learned how to walk like nothing hurt. When people asked why I limped, I said I'd sprained something. I got used to watching everyone look away. At home, my sister started complaining about shin splints from track practice, and suddenly my parents turned into amateur physiotherapists. They bought her a $3,000 massage gun and a treadmill for gentle rehab. Dad took her to 3 specialists who said she just needed rest, but they still bought her custom orthotics and a recliner for her room so she wouldn't strain herself. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on the same couch, my leg wrapped in an old towel because the swelling made the cast cut into my skin. When I asked for ice packs, Mom said I'd used too many and was wasting electricity. One night, I dropped a glass of water trying to stand, and she screamed that I'd ruined the rug. She made me clean it up on my knees while my sister stretched on her yoga mat, surrounded by all the things they said I didn't deserve. The day I collapsed in the school hallway, my vision went black like someone turned off the lights inside my head. I woke up in the nurse's office to the sound of my phone buzzing with my parents' texts asking if I could just tough it out until the weekend because they had dinner plans. The nurse insisted on calling an ambulance. The hospital ran scans and found multiple fractures that had never healed. Right bone pressing into muscle, scar tissue wrapped around nerves like wire. When the doctor asked why I hadn't been treated sooner, I told him my parents didn't believe me. The social worker came in that night. She spoke softly, asking if it was okay to look at my medical history. There were notes from 5 different ER visits over 2 years, each one marked with parents declined follow-up care. One doctor had written, patient's pain is consistent with trauma. Recommend imaging. Parents refuse. The social worker looked at me and said, you've been living with untreated injuries for years. My parents arrived 4 hours later. Dad's first words were, is this going to cost us? Mom asked why I couldn't wait until Monday, since my sister had a big track meet that weekend. I told the social worker everything. The nights I crawled to the bathroom, the way they called me lazy, the files they ignored. She nodded and said, you don't have to go back. Within a week, Child Protective Services filed for my protection. The caseworker called it one of the clearest examples of medical neglect she'd seen in 20 years. The judge signed the papers for emancipation the same day. He told my parents that the money they'd spent on my sister's recovery suite could have bought me proper surgery 3 times over. I packed a backpack that night. My art teacher, who'd been quietly checking in for months, offered me her spare room. She said she'd noticed how I winced when I stood, how I flinched when anyone raised their voice. Moving in felt like stepping out of a fog. Physical therapy was hard. Every stretch felt like learning to exist again. But slowly, I stopped walking with a limp. The first day I ran across the street without pain, I cried in the middle of the crosswalk. I'd spent years thinking my body was my punishment. Turns out it just needed care. My parents sent one email saying I'd embarrassed them and that people were talking about how I'd exaggerated an old injury to get sympathy. My sister texted that I'd ruined her recruitment season by making everything about me, but I didn't reply. A few months later, Mom called saying her shoulder pain had gotten worse and no doctor took her seriously. I asked if she tried ignoring it since. After all, some people just like attention. She went silent. For once, I didn't fill the silence for her.